Hello guys, welcome to the 13th video in the tutorial series of creating a top-down zombie game. So guys, this is the 14th time, the not the 14th, the fourth time I'm recording this video. Yeah, so the first three times I had like problems, like my mic wouldn't record for some reason, it would fail, or maybe just the quality wasn't as good. So I'll try this time and hopefully it's the last time I'm recording this video again. So yeah, so first things, I want to apologize for not uploading for around a week. Reason being was that I migrated from my older Windows PC to a newer one. So first things first was that the previous one was super slow. It had it had 4 gigs of RAM, and yeah, I could only like run two programs at once, and it was just slow, and it was horrible, and it was terrible. And yeah, so this one's much better. It has more RAM, it's got more processing power, and it's got an NVIDIA graphics card. So yeah, hooray! Anyways, so yeah, so what I did in the previous videos was I deleted everything. So the files that I just created was this file, the resources file, and then inside there I put in a maps and a characters and a player, which we're going to be loading. So guys, the link to these two files are going to be down below in the description. So yeah, so I didn't leave you guys hanging. So and yeah, so I also have this. I also put them inside the SRC. Now let's go ahead and get to drawing. So first things first, in order to draw an image, we need to have the reference to the image file. And to do that, we're gonna do that. So inside the game, in fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and create a new package, new Java package, and I'll name it utilities. And there we go. And inside that package, I'll create a new Java class, and I will name it util. And there we go. So first thing we might want to do is we're going to create a function, and I'm gonna call it load method. And this util class is going to function as a singleton class, meaning that it will be a class. It's a class that won't have an instance of itself. It's gonna only have one instance throughout the whole program. So I'm just gonna have static methods and all that stuff, all that crazy stuff. So yeah. So first of all, I'm gonna have a public static function called load image from file. From file, and we're only going to take in one parameter, and that is the path of the file, or the URL, or the location of the file name. And oh yeah, so we're going to have it return a buffered image. Now a buffered image is basically in Java, all images with the basic Java libraries, all images inside Java are stored as buffered images. So basically this function will return a buffered image. So yeah. So we're just gonna create a buffered image object img, and we're just simply gonna say return img. So and we're not yet done. So we need to initialize the variable. So now in order to initialize the variable, we're going to refer to another class called image.io. So we're just gonna simply say img equals to image.io read image io, not .io. Image io, gonna import that, and read from file, and I'm simply going to say new file. It's gonna be reading images from image files, and we're just gonna pass in the path. uh, path, and we're done. We just need to import the java.io file and throw the java.io exception. You're probably wondering, what is an exception? An exception is basically it is what it is. It's an exception. If something doesn't, let's say if we, I don't know, let's say for example, like we want to load an image from a specified directory, or from a specified, how do I say this? Let's say I want to load an image from, let me just give you an example. Let's say I want to load an image from characters and players, this image test.png, but let's say I want to say, so there we go. So if we go inside characters and we're trying to reach this image, but this image wasn't there, it would become an exception because it's gonna say it's gonna try and load the image. If we put in the path for this image, it's going to go into this folder and it's going to find that the folder is empty. And by finding that the folder is empty, it's going to basically see that as an exception. And yeah, so basically exceptions are basically errors. Exceptions are basically errors. I don't know why Java calls them exceptions. Exceptions basically an error. That's it. That's all you need to know. And yeah. Now let's just get into a game manager and load our image file and start using it. So first things first is we're going to create an image, a buffered image object for it to store our map image. Buffered image map, I'm going to call it map. And inside, okay, we need to import this. And then inside our initialize method, our init method, we're going to initialize that. So I'm going to say amg equals to util load. I need to import jcodes.util, and I'm going to say util.load image from file, and we're going to have a path. So now to do this, just close all the stuff and enter here, and there we go. So now first things first is inside we need to navigate to this image. Okay, we want to draw the map first, so we're gonna navigate to this image over here. Now we're not gonna write down the full path of the image. That's a big no-no, because if we deploy the game and give the game to other people, it will not find the image, because it's going to go and look for the image inside the D drive, projects, NetBeans. And what if they install the game inside the C drive and they don't have these first few folders? So what we're going to start from, we're going to start from, we're going to start specifying our directory from the resources folder. And I think it will just come naturally. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it properly. I'm not a teacher. I try to be one. Hilarious. So let me just open the folder. So it's going to be in resources, images, maps, resources, images, maps, and then test.jpg. Spelling is very important here. Reason being, if you make a spelling mistake, sorry about that, that's my dog. So yeah, I sorted that out, and yeah, so as I was saying, you need to like your spelling has to be on point, otherwise it isn't going to work out. And of course, you're gonna have to catch this exception. So we're gonna deal with this exception with a try catch block, meaning that we're gonna try this bunch of code, and if there's an exception or an error, it's going to be caught. Well, guys, I don't know how to explain it better than that. I don't know, just look at it with the documentation, with the Java documentation and stuff. And yeah, So first of all, we want to see if that's working properly, and no error. So it means the files have been loaded. The file has been loaded. Now we want to draw this. Now we're just going to go inside here and say graphics dot draw image. So this is a function, a method used to draw an image. It's going to take four parameters, the first one being the image itself. The next two parameters is the position where you want to start drawing from, where the coordinate isn't the center of the image, but it's the top left corner of the image. So we're just going to set this to 0 and 0. And this image observer thingy, I have no idea what it does, but we usually put it to null and it works properly. Now, if we run the program, this is what we get. Reason being, if I go back to the file explorer and look under my resources tab and look under images, maps, and let me open up the map, I will see that the size of the image is actually It's actually 1600 by 1200, and the size, the width and height of our canvas or our game is. Let me go to the main and check that out. It's 640 by 480. So this is where the second method comes in, the graphics dot draw image int x. So the image is going to take a parameter of the image itself, its x and its y position, its width and height, and image observer. Those other ones we're not going to use. So we're just going to go with 0 and 0. So basically what this function does, it basically stretches or it squeezes in images to the specified width and or height. So I'm going to put it to 640 so we can see the effect of it, and 480. And put the image observer to null, and when we run this, as you can see, there we go, there is our map, and it's horrible quality because I'm not a good artist. Well, this is just a test. I'll try and create better maps, and yeah, so this is it for now. And yeah, so guys, you can help me out. So if you are a better graphics designer than I am, you can try and create some assets with some very good quality grass tiles and some roads, some rocks, some houses, and all that stuff, and then you can email it to me. So yeah, that would be really fun because we can work on the project with you guys, so we can actually work together and not just by myself. And yeah, so and yeah, so we did this. Now we want to also draw the player image. So I'm just going to go here and create a inside the buffered image. I'm going to create a player instance, and we're just going to do the same thing as we did to the map instance. We're just going to initialize it inside the init method, initialize method. Just going to copy this and paste, rename this from map to player, and resources images characters, I think that is where I stored mine in, and under player, I like capitals today, player, and I think that's about it. So we're going to be replacing this with the player. We're going to be replacing the fill rect we had earlier on with the player. So I'm just going to say graphics dot draw image map and x at x position and y position and at now. So by doing this, and when we run the project, this seems to be an error. Okay, can't read input file. I probably missed a spelling or something, or the correct something. Oh yes, characters. Okay, yes, missed spelling, characters. Yes, and I save it as even if when I go into the whatever, I'm just gonna go to resources, characters, and there we go. So that's the character that we're going to be loading, and seems to still be a problem, an issue. Okay, it's not a JPEG image, it's a PNG. So as I was saying, my earlier point is you need to be accurate. You need to be super accurate when you're dealing with with URL and links and resources and all that stuff. Because it's not gonna work. You're gonna get errors, and your program will crash as it did. And yes, now it's working. And you're probably wondering, hey, Mr. Teacher Dude, why isn't the player showing? The reason being is that when we go into this render function, and we look at the order of drawing stuff, let me just comment that out. In fact, let me not comment it out, let me just remove it once and for all. When we look at the order of drawing stuff, we can simply see that first of all, we're drawing the player first, we're drawing the image first. So, and then on top of the image, we're drawing something else, the map. So if we draw an image on top of one image, the first image is going to be at the bottom, will not be visible. Now to fix that, we're simply just going to move this bunch of code to after the map, or we can move, or vice versa, move the map to before that. And yeah, now if we run it, the player is going to be on top. Okay, something just happened that I do not like. Okay, so it draws map instead of player. Wow. And now let's run, and there we go. And we can move it as we did previously. Now, what I want to do is, number one, it is not centered correctly. It's not centered in the middle. Now, to center this properly, we need to first of all see the size of the image, which is 200 by 200. To center that, we're just going to take away the half of the width and the half of the height to center it, because what is located at the location, how images are drawn anyways, it's from the problem error. Yes. So anyways, as I was saying, I forgot what I said. I was trying to say. I was saying, oh yeah, I remember now. Is that when we draw stuff, when images are drawn, it's usually from this point. For example, 0.00 for the image will be the top left corner. So if I want to draw something at the top left corner, at this point, at this position where the mouse is, the image will be drawn towards the left, or towards the right direction, towards the right, and towards the bottom. So to center that, you just have to take it, so you have to reduce the X position a little bit and the Y position a little bit. So yeah, and that is working. Now the other thing I wanted to show you is, for example, if I build the project right now and I run the project, if I build and run it, for example, like I was trying, as if I was trying to distribute the game as a jar file and run it, it will crash, or it will not, or nothing will happen. Reason being is that number one, we're trying to load resources as files, as a file. So this method here inside the util class, it says static buffered image load image from file. Now, what we're trying to access is this folder. We're trying to access this folder for the characters and all this stuff, all this nice stuff. The reason it isn't working is because they're not inside the same directory. So for this to work, I need to move the jar or the resources folder into the same directory, so they're in the same directory. And now when I run the jar, it's going to work. Now, what if we do not want to do that? We want to have the jar work independently of the resources file, and that's where you come in. So I already actually copied the resources from my previous videos, previous attempt on making this video, I copied and already pasted inside here, so it's going to appear as a class and not as a file. So let me just go to the code and change that real quick. Now, inside the util, I'm going to create another function and I'm going to call it and I'm going to name it public static. Let me just copy and paste too much work. Control C and Control V and load. And I'm just going to name it load image from class instead of load image from file. And yeah, so instead of naming it load image from file, I'm going to name it load image from class. Now the reason is because when I put those resources inside the src folder, it's actually going to put it inside the source packages folder, which means when we compile and build our project, it's going to be built and compiled as a class and instead of an image. So yeah, so now what we need to do is when we say load image from class, we're going to change a few things a bit. So instead of saying new file path, we're going to remove this. We're going to say util dot class dot get resource as stream and path. Simple. And now when we just go and change all of this from file and change it to class, we should have something working and error. Okay, input equals now. Image error read util the cluster get resource stream. I think I need to simply add a something like this and let us try that again. And yes, so it's working now. Now if I go ahead and I clean and build this, I can now enter the distribution folder, which NetBeans creates for me, and when I run the game, it happens independently. It doesn't happen. It runs independently of the resources file because it's already built into our projects. Because if we look at the build and go to classes, and for example, I'll just go to jQuery just to show something. It's going to compile that into a .class file. So this is exactly what happens if I go to build again and classes. It's also going to compile resources and all the resources that we have inside there into the classes folder. And all of this stuff that is inside the builds folder gets everything that's inside the builds folder gets compiled into one jar file, which is top-down zombie game jar, and it's executable without any external dependencies. So yeah, that's about it. Now the other major drawback is now this file is if you're going to have every single resources inside the jar file will be so large, it will be large and huge, it will be bulky and heavyweight. So what you get most games doing is that they just have the jar file, or they have the main executable file as a what? Just as it is, and then they're gonna have a resources folder. Let me just show you an example right here. Let me just try and open up Mortal Kombat XL and see if that's how it is. Okay, so as you can see, we have their main exe file, and then you have other files. They're not all, I think these are all resources, and they're not bundled inside this file. They're not bundled inside the Mortal Kombat 10 exe file. There's also other folders out here. And yeah, so that's about it. And as you can see, there's also actually more folders inside the assets folder. Then you can see all this other stuff, the characters, and those other informations, the datas, and all that stuff. All the resources are not bundled into the same executable file. They're actually external outside of the file. But the thing is, the exe file. If I were to move the exe file, the more mk10.exe file to somewhere else, it will not work. There we go. So yeah, I think we're done. Are we? Are we done? Is everything working? And yes, so as always, I'll leave the link to the project down below. Actually, wait, there's one more thing we need to fix before I allow you guys to leave, and that is, as you can see, when we make a game, it needs to be look a little bit more realistic. We can't have a player that's bigger than the road. We have two options. It's either to make the map bigger or to make the player smaller. I'm just gonna go with making this player smaller. So, and when we go into our render method, our render function, we're just gonna simply use this function instead of this function. We're just gonna use this instance of a function where we're gonna have 4 parameters, 5 parameters instead of 4 parameters, and we're just simply gonna add a width, which is defaulted to 200, which is the size of the image. So I want to reduce that a bit. I will take it to 150, as well as 150, and when that is done, I'm also going to reduce this to 75 because it needs to be half of this width, half of this, and yeah, to center it in the middle, in the center. And if we run it now, and there we go, we got a much better player and all that stuff. So that's good stuff. And yeah, so as I was saying, guys, as always, I'll leave the link to the source files down below in the description. And guys, don't forget to subscribe because you'll get updated whenever I make a new upload and all that stuff and all that good stuff. And yeah, so thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next video. We're going to be loading sounds and playing sounds, and is that about it? I think that's about it. And yeah, so guys, that's about it. So guys, peace.